your school year. You know, you start, I'm assuming, in September, so a lot of those positions are already filled. So that's why we were trying to, you know, get an approval as early as we possibly can, if the board so seen it that way, so we could, you know, put all of these ads in the papers and, you know, hire these people.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Mr. Brandon, you might as well just have a seat in the front if that's okay with you. Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, I do have just a couple of questions. Mr. Payne, Mr. Brandon as well. If I'm hearing you correctly, you have open enrollment, which means you can enroll into ALA at any time during the school year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when you talk about graduating from the program, you're talking about graduating from the program, not necessarily from high school. Your intent is to return that student to the school better than what they came.
That's true. I mean, there's two prongs, really.
Right.
I mean, obviously, as to, you know, a lot of these kids have gotten off their academic path as well.
Understand.
So you want to get them back on the academic path as well as make, you know, the therapeutic piece for many of these students is a key. That's why the 12-month program is important.
What's the average length of stay for students who enroll into the
12 to
program?
18 months, I believe. Is that correct? 12 to 18 months. If you see that in our numbers, you know, if a kid comes in and he's a freshman or a sophomore, you know, he has an opportunity to go back once he's gone through the therapeutic program. He has a chance to go back, obviously, getting his academic standards up, back to the school system. Kids that are older likely stay for the full time to graduate.
So if I complete the program and I live in North Carolina and I complete my high school courses here, where does my diploma come from?
It would come from ALA. That's why we would need the accredit. Well, it could do one of two things. They could go back, and you know, that's why we have to get the accreditation, because if they do go back and they want to graduate with their original school system or their original classmates before they came to ALA, they could take their credits back to that school system in North Carolina and graduate, which is the reason why we need the accreditation. Otherwise, they could graduate through our program.
Absolutely. Because I noticed you said mentioned a high school equivalent degree. Is that the purpose? Because you,
if I said that, I misspoke.
No, it's in the application.
No, it's a high school degree from ALA, and what, you know, obviously.
So once you're accredited, then they will earn. Some of the students could earn their high school diploma from ALA.
Right.
That's what you're saying, based on accreditation in Virginia.
Well, that's true, but also remember that non-public schools aren't required to have accreditation. The key for accreditation is for those students who are out of state. They have to go back, but they could graduate from our. The curriculum is the high school equivalent.
Okay. And finally, no, not my final question, but can you talk to me about you? I know you had some meetings with the community. There were meetings set up to discuss the program in the community. Can you just give me an idea of were there any folks who were still not sure on board?
I believe it was a very positive. I wasn't there, but what I understand, it was a very positive meeting. Obviously, people not being here,
Right.
testifying against the project. It seems that our outreach and talking to people and communicating, I think that was the disconnect last time around. We did not communicate with the public the way that we should have. That was a humbling experience, obviously, for the applicant. It wasn't a new strategy. It was just the right thing to do. Anytime you come to a new county or a new city or a new location, the first thing you need to do is reach out to the community. They need to know who you are. They need to have a comfort level with that. I think we did that. I think we accomplished that. You know, I think also, in all honesty, some people, you know, they don't change their mind. They have their mindset, and it's just the way it is. I think the number one issue was security. And I think after they heard what we had to say about our security plan and the type of kids that are there, that's the other misperception, is who's going to be there. Who are these kids? I think after that presentation, they were very comfortable on the majority side.
Yeah, that doesn't. Kids are kids, so that doesn't bother me too much, Charlie. Okay. I think that's all for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Sealy.
Mr. Payne,
Yes, sir.
the component, is there still the component, and I don't remember seeing that in the application, that the parents have to visit once a month, once a quarter? What is the visitation on that? Is it still part of the components?
Yes, it is. every parent has to be there for parent conference. Right now, it's the I believe it's the 26th of this month, is our next parent conference in St. George. So all of those group of kids that came in 4 months ago, those parents have to, 3 months ago, those parents have to be there for that. And that is a teaching on how to parent well. What is your child about? What do they struggle with? And we go through all of those different components.
How long do they come for?
Normally they come there for 3 days.
So it's basically once a quarter for a given group of students.
Yes.
So so you could theoretically have what, 15 or 20 sets of parents
Yes.
once a quarter?
Mm-hmm.
So actually that could be every month. There could be 4 or 5.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
We don't have the room. We don't have. We have to rent facilities now downtown just to make all of these things happen. We just physically can't do that.
Will this facility solve that in some respects?
In some respects, yes. As things go, well, we will be able to expand the facility to accommodate more people. Our thoughts for the future is to have more parent conferences there and basically open that up to not just children that are there as parents, just to open it up to a wide variety of people throughout the East Coast for the most part, because they're the people that will, come to the facility. This isn't for everybody. I'm not going to stand here and say every kid needs to come here. Some people, for whatever the dynamic is, their children can't go there. But if we could be able to somehow meet that halfway with at least preparing parents for the future, or what they're looking to see with their children, or how they can maybe avert some things, then that would be a good thing.
Okay. Security-wise, we've checked all the boxes. And I was just going to ask the security guy, how modifiable is it? How locked down is it? I know that things change. Everything's dynamic. I anticipate there'll be some issues probably in the beginning. There's always something that you didn't think about, or kids are creative. They are capable of figuring anything out.
Yes, sir.
Just curious about cameras, fobs, all that stuff. Is it reconfigurable, what you're going to have? How well will the students be able to figure out what's where and game the system, I guess?
It's a very detailed template. It can be changed from the modifications from the inside and outside of the structure. With 140 cameras, we think we have it pretty well set. Meeting with the Sheriff Department, we've been able to cover everything that he needed to be covered. We've worked with Kevin Whiteman on the security of the interior doors. It's not a lockdown facility, but the doors will be locked. The children cannot get out of those doors. There's only 2 ways those doors will activate to allow access out from in. And that is because of a power failure, automatic default, everything opens up in a fire alarm. We don't think there's going to be any power failure because Mr. Brandon has installed, and they're still up there, 2 2,500 amp generators. Should have immediate, not UPS, but immediate power to activate that. We put in a great plan for what we call elopement. Sometimes it's referred to as runaways, but they have a great plan, 3-phase plan. What to do immediately is they're going to call the sheriff. All the closed circuit camera systems, and we've got this from some of the stuff that, and I'm only speaking for me as a law enforcement. I don't represent Henrico County. But with all the stuff that we do in our jurisdiction with this IP closed circuit camera system, if there is an incident that needs to be watched, and with the filters being removed from the controllers of that system, the sheriff can watch from his laptop things that are going on at that center. Mr. Brandon is also going to purchase 2 radios that go direct to fire and EMS because it is an isolated facility, so we're going to have direct communication with fire and EMS. all fire and EMS, to include VSP and anybody else who needs to get in there with Caroline, because of overlapping law enforcement, can get into the gated either through a fob, card access, or knockbox, which is what the fire department is using. I feel fairly certain that they've been able to cover everything. Mr. Seeley, the big answer to your question is it's a growing template. If they see a concern that needs to be filled, they'll fill it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think those are all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Seeley, we want our parents to stay in Caroline County hotels and bed and breakfasts as well. So
I understand.
Well, we've got work to do there. Mr. Black?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Branning for your persistence. So thanks for being back with us. I guess I have one question that I saw in the security plan, and that was, and I didn't pick up on this last year, cameras in the bedrooms at the facility. I was wondering if Mr. Branning could talk to me about that. What's the reason that we have, as far as a privacy issue is concerned, cameras in the bedrooms?
The reason why we have cameras in the bedrooms is because teens are teens, and we want to be able to cover every single base we could possibly cover. They are required to get changed in the restrooms. They are not allowed to get changed in the bedrooms, in the dorm, the dorms themselves. So that's how we handle that. Every enrollment agreement states in there that the parent, we want the parents to come to the facility and see the facility and see what we do. Sometimes that's not, it can't be, it can't be done, for whatever the circumstance. Maybe, they're afraid the child might run. They want to get the child into the facility. They can't make those arrangements to physically be there. We have children from all over the world, for the most part. So sometimes logistically it doesn't work. But it is in the enrollment agreement and that the parents sign that there are cameras, in the dorms along with inside and outside the building.
Okay, so it's definitely the parents, when they're signing their child up for this academy, they 100% know that my child, there's going to be a camera in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not, it really isn't, then it doesn't really become a privacy issue at that point because the parent understands.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, one of the main concerns for parents, it was for us, at the time, is that our child is going to be safe and they're not going to leave the facility. And that's a big concern with parents.
Okay. And I guess the second question I had, and it's more maybe, and we had talked about it on the phone, I appreciate you calling me, the community service element of this. In Caroline County, the heavily part of the population is located along the Route 1 corridor, Lake Caroline, Lake Landor, Ladysmith Village area. Would the community service outreach be to that part of the county as well?
I believe all of Caroline County,
okay,
can be, helped with, with that type of service we would, provide.
So, like currently, right now, do you, like in Utah, do you bus kids to areas for community service?
Yeah.
That's what you do?
We put them in the van. It's a small group that goes. They have to, to go out on certain projects, they either have to be second or third phase on some of those. We do different outreaches. They have the, I'm just trying to think of the name of some of them, where they actually go to a center and they babysit the women's children so they can go out and look for work and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different outreaches that we do for, cleaning up properties or helping to paint, or, I mean, that's kind of a touch and go because you got kids painting.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, Mr. Branning. If you would, or kind of, Mr. Payne, you don't mind if I just ask him some questions? Okay. Mr. Branning, what's the yearly tuition?
Yearly tuition is full pay is $4,800
$4,800
a month. Yes.
a month,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be in there at least 12 months.
Yes, sir.
I just had brain lock.
Mm-hmm.
48,000 plus another 96, so we're talking almost 60,000 a year for 12 months.
Yes, sir.
5 times 12 would have been 60, so it's close, it's less than 60, but,
Yes.
okay, so 60,000 a year. Okay. You said there was a lot of parental involvement.
Mhm.
Do you have any kids who have single-parent homes?
Absolutely, yes.
10%, 20%, half, or you have no idea?
I'd say between, you know, single parents and divorced parents, it's probably bouncing around 50%.
Fairly significant.
Mhm.
Okay. Exactly what day did you purchase ALA? I mean, time frame.
September 1st, 2011.
September 1st, 2011. Okay, so it's not quite 2 years.
Not quite 2 years, no.
2 months short of 2 years. Okay. I don't know if you recall or you tried to forget, but do you remember when you came here last year?
Yes.
Okay, you had another gentleman with you.
Could have been Marcus Hamricker or David Good.
Hammaker? That's who it was? Is he still associated with you?
No, he's not.
Okay. So he's not associated. Do you recall my question? I asked you, and I don't know if Mr. Manns is behind that poster, but I thought, oh, he is. Okay. Do you recall my question to you and Mr. what was his name, Monica?
Hamricker.
Marcus? Okay.
Marcus.
My question to you and Marcus, I asked you about HEAL, H-E-A-L.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. His response to that was, that's just one person with a vendetta against ALA.
Mhm.
Okay. I was sitting at that time with my laptop connected to the internet, and I saw quite a few things that indicated that was not the case. Is it true that under the previous owner, that Child Protective Services actually closed his site?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it true that there was a student that escaped, stole a car or something to that effect,
At what time?
before you got it?
That I can't answer to because I don't know that to be
Okay.
true or false. Could I speak to your first question?
Okay, well, let me explain. I actually use this thing. It's a nice decoration, but I actually use it, and I did a Google search when you were here last time. That's primarily why I voted against you last time, is because I saw information that said you had been closed. You had at that time owned it less than a year.
Yep.
The special exception request said you wanted to move employees from Utah here. And all of those people down there that had security concerns. I've actually talked to people who've seen folks from Bermuda Ranch just pop up in the middle of the cornfield at 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, sir.
You've addressed security. The sheriff says he's satisfied with security. I would like you to address, and that's why I wanted to make sure Mr. Manns was here and he'd conveyed my message to you. I would like you to address the Child Protective Services issues and what you've done since then.
Well, as far as the Child Protective Services issue, the part that they didn't put in there, and there again, this was way before my time, was that that case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of Nevada actually turned it around and levied fines against that woman for the 3 people that were involved with that. She's no longer obviously working for Child Protective Services. So I don't know exactly what happened, how she came in, what the circumstances were, but there again, the Supreme Court saw it fit to, reverse all of that, that was done. As far as a child getting a car or anything, I've never heard that. I'm sure that it could have possibly happened before my time. But there again, I can't speak to that because I just don't know about it.
Okay. You have had in your 22 months of ownership no problems at all with Child Protective Services or any authority like that?
Yes, sir.
No complaints at all?
We've had complaints to the state against us from ex-employees that were let go for cause or whatever the case may be, and when the state came in, they had no problem with anything that we do. So, you know, if there was a minor issue, you know, maybe a fan not working or lights out or whatever the case may be, yes, we took care of it immediately. They usually come back in a week to make sure that you put a bulb in or a, you know, a switch or whatever they require, and that was pretty much the end of it.
And those kind of things, I mean, I'm not really concerned with, because I'm sure we all have those. I got a light out at my house, so that's no big deal. I just want to make sure, and again, you know, my opposition last year was basically because of information I saw while you were standing in front of me, and the person you had with you said, oh, just ignore that. It's not really the case. But obviously, if an agency of the state comes and does something, it's more than one person with a vendetta.
Right.
Okay. So you've had no problems, security plan. What happens if somebody gets out? You are going to pay for the sheriff's time and labor to take care of it, right?
Yeah, that was, a fine was to be levied after one offense. If it happened more than once, then the county would levy a fine against us and we would have to pay.
Okay, so you get one free pass, period.
Yes.
And then the second time, then the sheriff's office, I guess, will charge you for whatever time they have. And you're going to pay that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Question?
How many students are you gonna have? Or what's the maximum number of students that you can have at any given time?
Well, that is going to be determined by Kevin
Whiteman.
Whiteman. I talked to him today, and he said that, you know, not to use any numbers, because that's going to be determined by what he says as far as the code and the amount of rooms and the septic system. There's a lot of dynamics that are going to go into that number.
Okay. All right.
But your application, Mr. Chairman,
Go
your
right ahead.
application is, states that your initial enrollment would be up to 88 students. So I would think 88 is the maximum?
That's right. The current capacity for the site now, based on the Remuda Ranch
Right.
facility, was 88. But
Yeah.
that would have to be reevaluated at the
Yeah.
site plan stage when we come back.
Right.
That's all I have.
So he'd have to come back, if he went beyond the 88, would he have to come back to the planning commission or to the board, or how would that work?
We actually asked up to 200 in our
Okay.
application.
Okay, okay.
We did not recommend a limit of the 88 that was based on the health department permit, recognizing the building code requirements.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It'd be based on 130-plus acres that we intend to utilize for the facility, and whatever that capacity is would be the limit.
Gotcha.
And just to add a little more clarity to Mr. Thomas's question about the Child Protective Services case, what happened in that case was ALA sued Child Protective Services and was successful in gaining an award for false prosecution and damages. That's pretty significant to get damages against a state agency like that. So that was the outcome of that case, and the other details I think Mr. Branning has covered. But I wanted you to know the outcome and what the purpose was.
I was going to let it go, Mr. Payne, but since you brought it back up, actually the information that we had said the reason that they won, and again, it's the previous owner, I'm not looking Mr. Brannon, but the reason that ALA won that case was because the Child Protective Services agent left their folder behind, so they could then check what was in the folder.
I'm not sure. And of course, I'm not sure what you're reading. I have the case here if you want. I'm more than happy to submit it.
I'm reading it. So, I mean, I'm just saying, it's over, we're going to let it go, but since you brought it back up, it's like cross-examination, you brought the evidence in, I
Well,
I'm letting it go
I'll
now,
ta-
so we're moving
I'll
on.
take the foot out of my mouth, Mr.
We're
Chairman.
moving on. All right, any other questions? Mr. Underwood, you had a question? Oh, Mr. Underwood has a voting issue, I understand. Okay, any other questions? How does the board wish to handle this matter? Oh, I probably didn't, but,
I was going to say. You
no, I
may
did,
wanna-
because nobody spoke.
Okay.
Nobody
Just
spoke.
making sure.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve, it's your district, right?
My district.
I'll take it back, my motion.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve SPX 01, 2013 Beverly Run Vitreous Adolescent Services Private Boarding School.
Second.
Discussion on the motion, Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, I do want to briefly discuss what I do professionally. I think there is a little conflict. I work with 23 academies across the country for students who are disenfranchised, who are either at risk of dropping out of school or drop out of school. And we work as a school within a school within a school district. And I just wanted to make sure there was no conflict between, in any conflict. So I think that needs to be disclosed, that that's what I do on a daily basis, work with school districts to increase graduation rate, decrease dropouts, work through high school graduation.
You would like to withdraw from the voting process?
I would like to withdraw from
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion, kind of related. Mr. Fincham, we approve the special exception. I said we approve. If we approve, probably. If there are no issues, we of course wish Mr. Branning and the folks at ALA the best of luck and have a happy day. But if there are issues, since this is a special exception, the county has recourses because it has to be renewed or reviewed.
There's a recommendation for a renewal after 3 years from the date of approval, if approved.
If approved. But at any time, with any special exception, if there are significant issues, the special exception, as we've done for others, can be pulled immediately.
The board does have the authority to revoke for noncompliance.
And as I said, if we approve, we wish Mr. Branning the best of luck and have a good day. No more discussion on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Aye.
Let's make sure. Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood abstains?
Abstain.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And I'm going to vote aye as well, so the motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to the next issue. No applause. All right, our next public hearing, Mr. Fincham, go right ahead and we'll take a break after this one.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing is RZ03-2013, R207 LLC, owner and applicant, requesting a rezoning from RP, Rural Preservation, to M1 Industrial on tax maps 82-A-111, 112, and 123, consisting of a total of about 29.98 acres of land. The property is located on Ruther Glen Road in the vicinity of Patterson Lane and Carmel Church Loop in the Mattapan voting district. The 2030 comprehensive plan identifies this area as being within the Carmel Church community plan area designated for commercial office and office industrial uses. The proposed use is industrial. The applicant is requesting rezoning for 3 parcels of land totaling about 29.98 acres from RP to M1 industrial. Surrounding properties to the south are all part of Carmel Church Station and slated to be commercial and industrial uses. Parcel 113 along Route 652 and sharing two borders with other subject property is a house, former Ashton Taylor property, which is not an occupied dwelling. To the east, across Route 652 from the two larger property is also zoned M1 industrial. And immediately to the north, the property is zoned RP. Property to the west is zoned RP as well. Generally, the plan in this area calls for office and industrial types of uses. The current owner owns a large amount of industrial land. The McKesson site is located just to the east of this property. Rezoning the property to M1 with the proffers would bring these properties into the industrial plan for that area, as well as for the owner of the adjacent industrial properties. It would bring it all under one control. The applicant has proffered out most of what staff felt were the more intensive or objectionable uses for that industrial property. In the past, we have had some concerns about Route 652 and the need for improvements to Route 652. The applicant has proffered that they will update their traffic impact studies with each additional use proposed on the property. It's consistent with the other properties, with the zoning conditions for the other M1 properties that this owner has come before the board as well. Generally, this would be an infill of industrial zoning that would bring this additional 30 acres into the same industrial zoning and the comparable proffers as the other properties in the area. Planning Commission recommended approval, and with that, I'll address any questions that the board may have. We do have the executed proffers.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Board members at this time have any questions for Mr. Fincham? Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Fincham, did you say that the Ashton Taylor property was vacant?
The house that was formerly owned by Mr. Taylor and subsequently owned by his daughter,
correct,
is one of the parcels that's subject to this industrial zoning.
Correct. But did you say it was vacant?
I think we said it appeared vacant. It could be that it's still rented out. The applicant is here, and you could ask that question of him as to whether it's vacant at this time or not.
Okay.
No further questions from Mr.
I do have a question, Mr. Fincham, before we
Fincham?
talk. Truck terminals, and we're talking about truck stops. I know just recently there was some movement to move a truck stop, if you will, one of the truck facilities over to this new road. I don't see anything in here that prohibits that.
Wouldn't a truck stop need a special exception?
Truck stops are in the B1 zoning district,
Okay.
not the M1.
Okay.
So they would need a rezoning or a special exception to go in there.
It would require a rezoning, yes, sir,
And I
and a
think-
special exception.
And I think the discussion Mr. Akers referred to was extremely brief. Any other questions for Mr. Fincham? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. We will open the public hearing for RZ0323, R207 LLC, owner applicant. The public hearing is declared to be open. Mr. Shia, it's always good to see you. Would you like to speak?
Hello, my name is Alan Shai. I represent R207. Thank you for this time. There's not much more I can address that staff hasn't already brought to your attention. As we look at the purchased this property recently, and you could see one of them with the house on it. It is rented at this particular time. We do have a renter in there. That it was the last piece of a larger portion of property that surrounds it. That was one of our main objectives. The individual that owned it also wanted to pretty much remove herself from the rest of their property, so we purchased it. We met with staff, discussed what the different opportunities were for the property. We felt, and I think they felt, that the master plan had suggested, and that was the direction that the county was looking at it, going towards an industrial property, and we arrived at that. Furthermore, we in front of you is a set of proffers, and they're based off of discussion with staff and with the planning commission. As he said, there's additional right-of-way that VDOT requested on Route 652 that's in there. There's vegetated buffers that buffer from any RP property, and we've limited the uses in the M1. And then, if you have any further questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Ms. Cave, you come forward, state your name and your voting district, please.
Good evening. My name is Marie Kay, and I'm in the Mattaponi district. I am actually property owner. It's 82A-124. It is adjacent to these three pieces of property. And once again, I want to let y'all know, definitely not opposed to progress. All I ask is that things be taken into consideration so it's handled efficiently. Do you have a couple of concerns that I wanted to see if I could get addressed or get some clarification on? As far as the type of businesses that come in, of course, they would naturally affect my neighbors and I that are still there. I don't plan on being there permanently, but while I am there, I'm hoping that the type of businesses that are allowed will not negatively impact the living conditions. Like to take into consideration having a sound and visual buffer, depending on what kind of property it is, because it is going to be directly in front of me or adjacent to me. Also, had some issues as far as the number of entrances and exits that would be allowed. I know on 652, off of the parcel of 112, which has the large pond on it, if that is where the main entrance or exit would be, I can understand that. But if you have a second one, if it's coming off of parcel 111 onto the, what is kind of like the loop, but it's not officially called that now. We have some major issues right now that I don't know if I need to get with VDOT or how we should address this, but with the correction that was made for entrances for trucks to go into Love's, we have a major issue where the radius, when the trucks are trying to make the right-hand turn, if you are trying to turn left coming out, and I've had this happen to me, I almost was run over by a tractor trailer. They come into the left turn lane. So I have a major concern about that, and if we have additional, I'm looking at this as being a situation where something might happen in the next month. I'm trying to be very proactive. It may not for some time, but we already have these concerns right now. Also, we have a situation where since the road has been put through and so forth, that we have had issues with garbage being dumped. We actually have a neighbor that's been good enough to go through and try to pick it up when he's out walking, but we've had to call the sheriff's office to try to get tractor trailers moved. The no parking signs have helped tremendously. However, they are actually parking, and whether it be eating, sleeping, or other activities, it's a major concern. So those are the main things I'd just like to have taken into consideration, if at all possible.
Thank you, Mrs. Kay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing none, public hearing is declared closed. Board members have any questions? Well, before I do that, Mrs. Kay, you probably weren't here in the beginning, but we do, I did ask the county administrator to work with the sheriff and VDOT to look at that turn as it is, especially since we're looking at some more. I think a little bit of Major Mosier, a little bit of sheriff's enforcement there may help with the parking and, watch the truck drivers a little bit more. Okay. Any questions at this time for Mr. Fincham or the applicant?
I do.
Mr. Akers.
To address one of the concerns that Ms. Kay had about the buffer.
There is no buffer built in to the fronts of these properties because they technically are front yards.
Suppose Ms. Kay,
She's kind of on the corner.
yeah, I know where her house is at. I know where her house is at. Mom, it's Dad's house. But my question is, were you speaking of the front yard as far as a buffer was concerned, or were you talking about around the property?
You have in the proffers or in the notes, number 7, it says an applicant shall create a 25-foot vegetated buffer along all abutting residentially zoned property lines?
Yes, that's a physical 25-foot buffer, which you could say landscaped or something like that. But yes, in fact, if you look at the development plan, there is a 25-foot buffer identified to the property to the west along Patterson Avenue. All the other properties are already zoned industrial. So we didn't recommend a buffer along the fronts of the roads because those are front yards. Visibility to your office, to your buildings, things like that would be an issue, potentially with a berm or something like that. You've got your standard front yard setbacks. But there is a buffer to the west of parcel 111, I believe it is, of 25 feet, which is off of Patterson Avenue.
Which will take care of the neighbors there. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I don't know that we can do anything to, if she wants it for a front yard, for the front. I'm not sure because her front yard comes to the road, and there's road, and there's property across, right?
You would see the building. You might see some parking related to the use. But if there's outside storage or something like that, that's required to be screened by ordinance anyway. So if there's any storage materials or anything like that, that would have to be fenced or otherwise screened from view.
Okay. Ms. Kay, I think that's probably the best we're going to be able to do for you. Thank you.
But now that is we're saying vegetation, buffer, vegetation means landscaping. So, yeah. That's
Mr.
okay.
Chairman.
Give me 1 second.
There is the buffer requirement along Patterson Avenue to the property to the west.
And the 25-foot buffer, let's make sure we understand definitions, does not mean 25 feet of grass or 25 feet of open space. It means something in the middle. Vegetation is grass, but we want to make sure we understand and make sure. Where'd Mr. Shai go? Oh, he's behind Mike. Okay. Make sure we all understand. And I think Mr. Shai has worked. You've got some other properties you've done things on. You've worked out with Mrs. K for an easement. Seems like we're all working together. We just want to make sure we keep doing it.
You want to clarify that to say landscaped visual buffer? Clarification?
I think that's probably a good clarification. You had a question, Mr. Seeley? Was that the question?
Well, it's along those lines. But, Mr. Fincham, I'll let you write that if you need to write that down first.
I'm okay.
You're sure? This goes, I guess, and I understand her question, but it goes more to the site plan. How will this be arranged in the future? Because the site plan makes the biggest difference. And I understand every business wants signage on what they consider their entranceway or main road. So let's start with entranceways. Are we allowing just one with a road internal to this? Or are we going to allow